Welcome to At the Table with Tony. My name is Anthony Shelia, better known as Tony Manja, and today I have the extreme honor of welcoming my friend Mike DeSapio. He's amazing. First of all, he's a great guy, great person, a great Italian American. Really proud of his culture. But the reason why I asked him to come on the show today is to talk about Italian dual citizenship. And the name of his company, he has DeSapio. Was it DeSapio Dual Citizen Services, right?
Yeah. Yep. DeSapio Dual Citizenship Services. Yep.
Okay, so I could put that hold on, let me get it there. There it is. We'll put it on the bottom of the screen.
Right. Perfect.
For those that want to go visit him on the website. So Mike, again, thank you for taking some time out to come on the show and talk a little bit about I do want to talk a little bit about about your history and how you got involved with researching your ancestry, and then we'll get into some more about what is dual citizenship, and of course, if people have questions or comments, they can also contact us we're live now on YouTube and Facebook. So first of all, thank you for coming on the show, Mike.
My pleasure. Thanks, Tony. Thanks for having me on.
Thank you for taking some time out. I know most of us have some time on our hands now.
A lot of time to kill these days, so like everybody else.
I mean, maybe not much, but a little bit.
Yeah.
So I know whenever I get some extra time, I like to do these shows. I like to kind of bring the Italian American community, usually food based, but again, we also talk about. I've done shows about faith, about saints. So I mean, this is gonna be great because to be honest, I am exploring my options on this whole dual citizenship, but we will get to that in a little bit. First, I want you to introduce yourself, Mike. So tell us a little bit about yourself, your background, where you're from. I know you're a Jersey boy.
That's right.
So give us a little bit of your background.
So, I was born and raised in Hunterdon County, New Jersey. I'm in Kingwood Township, which is outside of Frenchtown, New Jersey. Born and raised here. I, studied abroad and went to Penn State for college, but I ended up coming back here. So I didn't get far from home. I actually live on DeSapio Lane. It's a great place to grow up. It's very rural. When I was younger, there wasn't a lot of Italian Americans in the area, but the DeSapios are a sizable family, so it felt like an Italian enclave. But as the years went on, there more and more families moved out this way. We're right in the thick of it. So that's pretty much it.
So, what is your Italian background? So I'm sure Southern Italian, right?
Yeah. So my dad's family was my grandfather came over from Monteforte, which is in Campania, about 15 minutes from Avellino, and my mother was born in Calabria. She was born Calabrese, but she was actually, it's a funny story, she was adopted into a Sicilian family. So growing up, she considered herself Sicilian, and she was very proud of it. And I mean, she knew she was Calabrese, but I didn't really realize that until, into my teenage years. So I have an affinity for the Sicilian culture too. But
yeah, as you can see from behind, I have my Sicilian flag. That's part of my culture, and I just love that. I love the flag of Sicily.
Yeah, they're very.
It has a lot of meaning to it. A lot of pride. Because when people say, "Are you?" I know, especially for my wife's family, because they're 100% Sicilian. When they say, what are you? They don't say Italian. They say we're Sicilian.
But my father's side is the side that we keep in touch with. The cousins over there, and with the wonder of social media now, it's a lot easier to do these days. So
when did was your father born here, or he was born there?
My father was born here. Yep. Okay. His father was born in Italy, and he came over with my great grandparents. He was I think he was 9 or so. Okay. He came with them.
So now you actually sent me a picture. I'm gonna share this picture right now. This is of your dad's family.
Yeah. So that's my dad is in the lower left-hand corner there. This was in my grandmother's parents' apartment in Hoboken.
Oh, wow.
So all the kids there are aunts and uncles. My grandfather is there with the 2 kids on his lap. And then my grandmother's there on the right, kind of hiding in the back. And then it's my great-grandparents in the middle. Yeah.
A lot of that. What's the famous saying? If this image could speak, I'm sure it would tell an amazing story.
Yeah, I love that picture, and I feel bad. My Uncle Jim was probably the one taking the picture. My dad was one of 8, and he's the only one not pictured there. But, it's the reason we were talking about it is that Luciano, my great grandfather, is the one that I actually qualified for dual citizenship through him.
And that is the gentleman with the tie on.
Yes. Yep.
Okay.
Right in the center of the picture there. Yep. The older gentleman.
Okay, so we're gonna get into that a little bit. Actually, we do have a couple of comments I want to bring up. So somebody said, Mike, what part of Sicily was your mom raised?
Oh, she was born in Calabria, and
Okay.
when she was adopted to a Sicilian American family. So
okay, so it wasn't
here when she was 5 years old.
Okay.
And that was the other picture I sent you. Was their first day here. Actually, I think it was younger than 5. They look like pretty little kids. Yeah, that's my mom and her brother there, and with my great grandfather. So
wow.
Yeah, she was born in Venice, in Calabria, right outside of Locri.
Okay, but where is this? Where was this photo taking?
That picture is in New Jersey. It's in Tewksbury, New Jersey, about 20 minutes from where I live now.
Now, so how did your family end up? Because you mentioned Hoboken. That's your father's family. That's where they first settled.
That was my grandmother's. My father's mother's family was in Hoboken.
Okay.
My grandfather's family came. The older siblings. They were right near Little Italy in Manhattan for a few years, and then they moved. When the whole family came over, that's an interesting story too. So. They were farmers, right? So my grandfather wanted to buy a farm, my great-grandfather, and they went with a realtor, pretty much up in the tri-state area. They went to Connecticut, New York, New Jersey, and at each stop, my great-grandfather would kneel down and taste the dirt. And I guess the dirt tasted pretty well in Kingwood Township here. So that's where they settled.
Oh, that's a story there. Have you ever seen this movie called Mac with John Turturro? Who is it? Paul Capotorto. I think his name was Paul Capotorto.
Okay. Yeah,
and Michael Badalamenti.
Yeah.
So it's all about like this family that they came to America. The parents, the father and the mother, and then how he instilled in his family the worth ethic of an Italian, and the brothers they opened up their own construction company. They were building houses, and really, if you get a chance to find this movie, it came out like in the early '90s, but the movie is phenomenal movie. But it reminds you kind of like how they take pride, with the dirt and with the
So they started, they were growing up. My grandfather they sold produce in Hoboken. So my grandmother's building was one of the buildings they sold produce to. So the rest is history.
So wait, so where was she from in Italy?
She was from I believe it was Oltrepaldo, which is not far from Monteforte, and also in Campania.
Okay, because I know Hoboken. That's where part of my family's from. There, a lot of them are from Monte San Giacomo, which is Salerno. And then there's the other side. There's a lot of it also from Molfetta. And then I think the original. I think some of the original Italian settlers in Hoboken were actually from Genoa.
Okay.
There was a large Genovese population, as well as there was actually a Sicilian population. Which there's very.
Her father. She was born in Hoboken, but her father was born in Avellino. But her parents got married in Oltrepaldo.
Okay. Wow. Interesting. So. Italian dual citizenship.
Yeah.
When it seems like this scary thing to figure out, like how do you navigate becoming a citizen of another country without actually living there, without actually being born there.
Right.
But there is a way for you to do this in Italy.
Correct.
Or through the Italian government.
Right. Right.
So what does dual citizenship mean?
So dual citizenship essentially means you could be a citizen of 2 different countries. So it was actually the Italian government that did not allow it up until 1992 is when the law changed. So when that happened, a lot of people started applying for dual citizenship. And what it essentially means is you can be a citizen of 2 different countries. Back when most of our ancestors came, when they petitioned for naturalization in the U.S., they had to renounce their Italian citizenship. So the law works differently these days. Mm-hmm. And the Italians consider There's several different ways you become a citizen, but what we're talking about mostly here is through right of blood. Actually, is how they refer to it. It's through descendancy, and how they consider it to be. You're an Italian citizen. You just have to prove it. So it's not something that you're really applying for. It's just proving that you have that ancestry, and essentially, you have to go back to whatever the last born Italian ancestor was, the person that came over. And if they were still an Italian citizen when that American generation was born, as a rule of thumb, you're generally okay. I mean, there's a few provisos there that
really
we talk about. Yeah. But it depends on the timing. So if the person never became an American citizen, or if they naturalized after their American generation was born, that right still passes down.
Okay.
Because that child was born to Italian, quote unquote, Italian parents. So they retain that right, and it gets passed down through the years.
But let me ask you this. So, okay, so say there was 5, just for an easy number, I'll say, okay, there were 4 kids in the family. Do all 4 kids had to have been born for that a right to be, I guess, descended to them? Or is it only the person that you're going to go through? So, okay, so let me give you.
You're going through. So it's your direct line. We're talking grandparents and parents.
So it doesn't matter that Aunt Fanny or that Uncle Joe was born after, great grandpa so and so was a citizen. It's just your grandfather. So if your grandfather was born, then you still have that right to acquire the citizenship.
So there's some families. Yeah, you're correct. So there's some families where the father was still an Italian citizen when the first 2 kids were born. Then he got his citizenship, and they had a few more kids. So the descendants of those kids later on, unfortunately, are out of luck.
It's a little, but now can they? I guess this is a question that I'm sure we're going to get to eventually. But let me just ask you now: can those people still acquire the citizenship?
They can by other means. So they can become an Italian citizen by naturalization, which is living over there for a certain number of years. Depends if you have Italian ancestors or not, how long you have to be there. They could also apply through marriage. If they marry an Italian citizen, but all those other options usually have to do with residing in Italy.
Okay, so it isn't as easy then, as it is to get it through the bloodline.
Correct. Yeah,
because you have to actually physically live in a place or marry a person that's from there. So it becomes a little bit. I mean, not to say that this process isn't complicated, because like I said, I'm starting to go through it, and it's very complicated. Extremely complicated.
Yeah. Well, it's more straightforward than people I think realize, but it's the devil's in the details of, the misspellings in documents and getting the proper certifications and things like that. So that's why services like mine exist, to walk people through it.
So now, what exactly? So okay. So I'm gonna email you. I'm gonna go to your. I'm gonna put it up right now. I'm gonna go to your website. I'm gonna email. I'm gonna email. I say, Mike, I'm thinking about going for my dual citizenship. What do I do?
Right.
Help me.
So what I do is it depends on how much information you have. So if you have the names of your ancestor and kind of generally where they came from in Italy, and you have some information, I would work with you to find out as much as I can to see whether you qualify or not. And then it's a matter of getting the documents. A lot of people have that information. At least they have names where we can do some research and find it. Some people don't have much of any info, and they say, I know Italian, I don't know where, it was 3 generations back, and I'm not sure. So in that case, we have to trace it back. We work from their parents to their grandparents, and try to determine when that Italian ancestor came over.
Okay.
So once we determine who that ancestor is.
Mike, did I lose you? I think I might have lost Mike. I don't know if it's my computer or if it's. Let's see. I think I might have lost Mike. So we were talking. I think I might have lost Mike. Let's see if. Yep, it's Mike's computer. I was just listening to it on Facebook. So there's always seems to be these technical glitches, these technical difficulties. So I'm going to see if I can get Mike to come back. I'm going to remove him from the stream for a second and see He's coming back in now. Okay, good. Yeah, I'll tell you though, the blessings and the curses of doing these live stream videos really are very interesting because as me and my friend Peter talk about because he had the same trouble I think yesterday. So so now it's just like we have a whole show plan and then the technical difficulty strikes and then we're like humming like we're like Ralph Cramden and the Honeymooners. But yeah, so this is a very interesting topic because and I do have a couple of comments and a couple of questions that I'm going to get to once Mike gets back into the studio here, the virtual studio. But really, it is super interesting because if you know me, you know that I absolutely love doing genealogical research. If you follow me on Instagram or Facebook or Twitter or whatever, you know that I am probably doing genealogical research literally every day. Like every night when I come home from work, I sit in front of the computer, even if it's for a half an hour, even for 20 minutes, and I just try to do some research. So I'm getting really deep into some stuff, and actually, you could find amazing find relatives in different countries. So for me, for example, I found some cousins in Italy that for years I've been searching for, and I couldn't find them until just recently. So there is so much that you could do. Let's see. I think Mike is actually joining us now. Let's get him back to this. Mike, are you there?
Yeah, my power went out.
Your power went out?
Yeah, it did. It came right back on, but it went out. So.
Oh man, how is the weather? Is the weather bad down there?
It's raining, but it's not really storming very hard. So I'm not.
I was like humming. I was like Ralph Cramden, humming. But okay, so we were. I was just telling them a little bit about all the ancestral research that I do, but we do have a couple of questions and a couple of comments. If I'm actually going to bring that up, I'm going to bring. So we have a question, I guess from Tommy LaPiccolo. He said, "Don't mean to ask this, but how much does a process cost if both parents are from there?"
If both parents are from there, so that's I generally work the fee by how many generations you have to go back because the more generations you go back, the more documents you have to obtain and the more time it's put in. I can't speak for other services, but if your parents are from there and you know what towns they were born in, I would say between 1,500 and 2,000 if you wanted me to do everything from start to finish. That includes out-of-pocket costs.
Okay.
I know a lot of people would be hesitant to answer that question on the air, but that's generally the way it is. I would lay out what the out-of-pocket costs are so people realize how much it would be to do it on their own.
Because to be honest, I mean, even just to get certain, because like I said, I'm starting to do this process, and I know I've been to China a bunch of times, and really just to get the paperwork is not cheap.
Right.
I mean, you have to. So so exactly. Let's go back to the actual processes and the steps.
So once you have all the family history and you have the dates and locations of where things happened, you have to get what's called certified long form copies of birth certificates, marriage certificates, and death certificates for everybody from you up to that Italian ancestor. And then besides those documents, when you have your Italian ancestor, you have to get their naturalization records, which you would order from the federal government usually. Or if they didn't naturalize, you have to get what's called a certificate of non-existence. So that costs some money. Depending on the state, it can cost anywhere from $20 to $50 to get per document to get those certified copies. And the naturalization records, there's actually some contention now because they're proposing to raise the fees. But right now it's $65 to search for the record, and then it's $65 to actually obtain the record once you find the info. Okay. They're proposing to up that to like $230 for the search and $300 for the record, and it's astronomical. So there's
is there a reason behind that?
It's a proposed new rules from the department, the USCIS, the United States Citizenship and Immigration Service. I haven't read the rules too thoroughly, only to verify that they do want to raise it like that. And there's actually a nonprofit that's fighting it. It's mostly researchers and amateur genealogists and professional genealogists, because that cost will get passed down to anybody that's that's doing research. So
Yeah, I mean, in a way, you think about it, I mean, I'm not this multimillionaire. I don't have millions of dollars. And for me,
yeah,
like I said, I'm doing a lot of this my own research,
yeah,
and yeah, it does add up. So you want to pass this cost on to the citizen.
yeah,
It's ridiculous. Really,
yeah.
it's sometimes the federal government. Oh, I'm not even going to go there, but
Right, right.
that's for a different show.
There's other problems now. So, but
So we do
but
have.
after you get all the documents, you also have to get them translated into Italian,
Mhm.
which translation services are anywhere from $25 a page to $50 a page for the documents. And then the last step is to get what they call an apostille for each US document, which is it's an authentication that has to be attached to that document to show the Italian government that it's authentic.
Yes.
And that ranges state by state. New York, it's $10. New Jersey, it's between 25 and 40, depending on how quickly you want it. Other states, it's $5.
So really, there is no I guess a standardized price throughout the country.
Right.
Every state could, kind of controls their own whatever the rules of the prices and stuff like that.
Correct. Yeah.
We do have a question here from Anthony Dalbo. He says, so during this quarantine, I found my grandfather's Italian birth certificate from 1908 in an old file I was cleaning out. I'm not sure when my grandfather obtained his American citizenship. Where is a good place to start?
So a good place to start, for keeping costs down, is to go to a site like Ancestry or Family Search and enter in the biographical info to see if you can get an idea through census records. There'll be a column for citizenship, and it'll say AL for alien or NA for naturalized, or there's another abbreviation if they filed their papers. That'll give you an idea if they were naturalized before or after the child was born. But and you could also search the National Archives. But the definitive way to do it is to go to the USCIS website, and if there's a genealogy section, and you could order a search, and you enter all the information from that ancestor, and it takes about 2 or 3 weeks to a month to get the results back. But they'll email you a letter saying we've searched the name, or we've searched different spellings of the name, and here's their certificate number or a file number, and then you have to go back in and order that actual document. Or they'll have a letter saying we don't have any records of it, and then you go back and order a certificate of non-existence. So I don't have the link in front of me, but it's the United States Citizenship and Immigration Service, the genealogy section.
Okay, I think I know if I might have. I think I was actually on that website recently. I don't know if I had it, if I still have it up here on my bar on my. No, I don't have it, unfortunately. But again, so really, if you're thinking about doing this whole Italian citizenship, you really need a little bit of time, a little bit of patience.
Yep.
Because also now to get because yes, you can get all this information, you can get all this paperwork, but then the next step is, I guess, to make an appointment with the embassy, not the embassy,
the consulate.
Yeah, consulate. So, well, for us, it would be New York City. So, what is that about?
That's that's probably one of my bigger headaches in doing this, because I think if appointments were easier to come by, I'd have a lot more people knocking on my door. So years ago, it was a phone service. You'd call in, you get somebody live, and they would tell you when the next available date is, even if that was 3 years out. At least you'd have a date. Now you have to go through their online system. So you have to register with their online system. And then you have to, once you're registered, you have a password and a email. And you have to go back in and try to schedule your appointment. Most of the time, it's at least 2 years out from when you're scheduling it. But it goes to 2 years, and if they're all booked, they're all booked. Then you don't have any options. You have to wait, and each day or every other day, you got to keep trying, because they'll release a certain amount of appointments each day. And like what they say to do is, wherever time zone you're in, you log on right at midnight Italy time, because that is when they reset their system. It takes, I have clients that get very frustrated because it takes weeks and months to keep trying to get the appointment. My father actually made his appointment on Christmas Eve, and I think we were lucky because everybody was at mass, and so, it was like between dinner and midnight mass, and I logged on, and we found that there was an appointment open because everybody else was busy. But so it's difficult, and and they only do it a few times, like from 9 to noon, right? And there's only 9 consulates. There's several embassies throughout the country, but there's only 9 consulates that do the citizenship work. So when you think about it, that's a lot of people trying to apply.
Yeah.
So it's frustrating.
Yeah,
and I really would put some more resources, or I don't know what the Italian government can do to loosen it up, but it's tough.
Two points to that. For me personally, it took me about a week and a half, I think, or maybe 2 weeks to actually get that appointment. And like you said, it's about 2 or 3 years out. Yeah. So it's a bit, you're waiting. Now, the follow-up question to that is, now obviously we're in the middle of a pandemic. Italy was hit tremendously, terribly. Does this affect, or would you think that this would affect these citizenship requests?
I think it does, from a perspective of now that the system is actually, you can still register with the online system, like get your password and all that, but the scheduling calendar is down altogether. So until they open back up, everybody's kind of on pause, and I'm not even sure what they did with current appointments during this time period. If they did them, remotely or not, but they're not scheduling any new appointments. So there's lots of people out there now that are waiting to schedule their appointment, and it's a hard thing to get anyway. So
it's literally it's like trying to win the lottery.
Yeah, and so I'm really hoping, and I have a number of customers and clients that are keep asking what anything new going on. And I have to say no, not yet, but we're hoping in the next few weeks they're starting to loosen up restrictions there, and hopefully that'll trickle down to the consulates. I'm really hoping the Italian government thinks about putting some resources into expanding, how many officers they have taking these appointments.
Yeah.
So that we can get people in.
So what are some of the benefits of getting your Italian citizenship?
I'd say, so most people, maybe, I don't know, 80% or so, it's the sentimentality, it's the connection to your homeland. And I think that's what a lot of people here are doing it for. But there's some practical reasons as well. Besides connecting to your heritage, there's hereditary value. So once you're established as an Italian citizen, it passes down the generations. So your children to your grandchildren, they don't have to go through this process of getting all these documents together. They just send their birth certificate to the consulate and they're registered. Another big one is ease of travel. So once you're an Italian citizen, you're also an EU citizen. So the rights of an EU citizen would apply to any European country. So you don't have to get a visa if you're going to travel for a extended period of time. You could live, work, rent in any EU country and have the same rights as an EU citizen. So again, you don't have to go through the visa process. Employment opportunities. If somebody's going to work for a European company and they're going to work over there, I think if all of the things are equal, if you have one candidate that's a citizen of that country and one that's not, and you have to invest all these resources into getting them a visa and getting them through that process, I think they're going to take the person that's a citizen and already able to live there. Also, a lot of European countries, including Italy, secondary education is a lot cheaper than it is here. It's funded better. And so you can get a 4-year degree or a master's degree or higher education for a lot cheaper than you would here. So that's another advantage. And owning property, renting property, inheriting property. There's always the Italian bureaucracy, but it's a little less if you're a citizen as opposed to, an American citizen trying to do that.
What about healthcare?
And you're eligible for their health, into their healthcare system. So it's
so if you were traveling abroad and God forbid something happens, you get hurt, you break a foot, you break something, you can be seen by, I guess, in a timely manner in one of their facilities.
Correct. Yep. So you have the same rights in their healthcare system as you would if you were living there.
But I mean, I don't know. I think that really, like, one of the, for me, the main reason would be is that sentimentality, is that
Right.
connecting with my heritage. I posted a picture earlier today, a couple of maybe an hour or so ago, of I colorized and I edited this picture of the two women that you see a lot of. You see this picture a lot. I should have put it up. It's on my
Mhm.
phone. It's not on my laptop. But you look at these women, these two beautiful Southern Italian women, and on their faces this, it's there's a little bit of fear, there's hope, there's a lot, the expression is, it's very emotional. And
Mhm.
to think about, the sacrifices that our grandparents, great grandparents, parents even, to come to this country, but yet to still have that connection to the motherland or the homeland or the fatherland, whatever you want to call it, I think is very, very important. So my question is, so when you get your Italian citizenship, are you then connected to a paese or to a città, to a city? How does
Yeah.
that work? Do you
Yeah.
become a citizen of your
So
grandfather's city, or?
yeah, exactly. So it's that Italian ancestor where they were born. That's where you're registered. That's where your hometown is. That's where they send your birth certificate and your marriage certificate. That's why if somebody's been divorced, they still need to have that document as well, so it's recorded in Italy that they're not married. you know, so your hometown becomes that your ancestor's hometown.
Now, what about, like, say, so just say, for example, if, say, you're not divorced, but say like your parents are divorced, your grandparents are divorced, would
Mhm.
you still need those documents as
They,
well?
they do still ask for that, yeah, if possible.
Why
Um,
is there a reason behind that?
I couldn't tell you off the top. I know when they ask me for it, I try to get it. I mean, that's another question that does come up.
Is it a deal breaker?
No, I don't believe so. So even birth certificates and things like that are they want them, and but not you can't always find them, right? So you have to work with the consulate in getting ancillary documents. Generally they don't want a baptismal record, but if you can't find the birth record, you got to show as much information as possible. I mean, I have a friend who's going through it now and couldn't find that great grandfather's birth certificate. So we have to, get the baptismal, and this is a New York birth. Um, so we're getting baptismal records, and we're having certifications from a genealogist and things like that, because you need to, obviously they were born,
Mm,
and you have all their other siblings that were born in the same building and things like that.
but not
And
theirs.
right, right. So they'll usually work with you for certain records.
Now,
If you can't find the birth certificate for that Italian ancestor that was born, that's a toughie.
yeah.
You need to show that.
So that brings up two more questions I have for you. So you obviously need then the person that you're going to get the citizenship to, you need their birth certificate.
Correct.
So how do you, now we live in America, obviously. How are we going to get their birth certificate in Italy?
That's another fun task. So you have to write to the comune, the town hall, and request it, and usually have to send an authorization. I work with a couple other contractors, a few people on the ground over there, and even some services here that are similar to mine that have more of a network. Depending on the region or where it is, will depend on how I try to approach it. A lot of times the customer or the client will contact them themselves. Now in the age of email, it's easier to send that request. So you have to request it from the comune, and some are wonderful. Getting those documents. Some take weeks, months of just badgering to get that document. So you don't get the physical. You see the rolls of when somebody records a birth that are scanned in, but what they give you is a transcript essentially of all the info on there, and that's what you get from the town hall.
So there is this website, right?
Right. Yep. There it is.
Antenati.
Antenati is it's a good site. I mean, they for as far as Italian documents, it's probably the best out there. So you could search by names and years and indexes, but if something doesn't pop up when you do the name search, don't get disheartened, because there's so many documents that they've actually scanned in that they haven't put on the website yet, or it didn't get typed in correctly when they scanned the rolls. There's also ways to go search through the indexes. If you knew the month and the year and the town,
Mm-hmm.
If those logs are all scanned in, you go page by page, and most of the time you can find it if it's there. So again, depends on the town, depends on the area, whether it's all scanned in. But that website has the most of them scanned, is the best out there that I've seen. That you have a lot of documents.
So I'm gonna bring up a, let's see if I can insert this. I actually have a document from Italy. I'm trying to insert it into the into upload it here. So like I said, I've been trying to do some genealogical research of my own, and of course, when you want to find something on your computer, oh, here we go, genealogy. Let's see if I can find my this would be my, I guess, my second great grandfather's. If I can find it. G A B C D E F G Giuseppe. Let's see if this is it. Is this? I don't know if this might be one of the. So I just want to show like what a record looks like for those. So this is not probably my grandfather. I don't know if it's hard to zoom in. Actually, this is a birth record.
Yeah, so it's the rolls that they would. That's probably about 4 people or 2 people worth, because they're long entries. That looks like the birth rolls.
So now, how does that work? So this is so is this is not technically the birth certificate. This is just the record that is then filed with the commune, with the town in Italy,
Correct.
right? So,
Correct.
so you're saying from this, then they would be able to give you, like I say, certified copy of the birth that actually took place.
Right. They don't like make a photocopy of that. What they do is they record that information and certify it, and send you that transcript, which is what the consulate wants. But every once in a while, a client will have the original birth certificate that the family took home, which is great.
I'm sure that makes the job a little bit easier.
Yeah.
But so what now? Okay, so now let's talk a little bit about the process of actually getting the citizenship. So you made your appointment.
Mm-hmm.
The day comes. You go to New York. Well, for us it'd be New York. You go to New York, and so can you kind of like walk us through a day? Like what happens?
Yeah,
is there an interview process?
You go up there and you sit down with the case officer, and they just start asking you for documents, and you want to have your pile as organized as you can. So they start, you start handing them documents. They look at it and they're typing forever, and recording things. And then what they'll do is, if there's any issues, they'll have like a list of deficiencies, and they'll say, the ancestor's name is spelled Giuseppe over here, but it's Joseph over here, and they have to match. Mm-hmm. Or there's certain dates that are different on certain documents, and they'll give you a list to fix, essentially. Okay. Or if you're missing a document, if you forgot to have a death record or something like that. I mean, if you're there really unprepared, they'll hand it back to you and say, you got to make another appointment. But most of the time you'll have most of the stuff, and they'll give you a list of what you need to correct. And you get that document, or get a record amended, and you mail it back to the consulate. So once they have the whole file complete, they send it to Rome for review. And then they tell you, don't even call us, like, for 8 months, a year.
Whoa.
Before they review it. And then, sometimes you even forget about it. And then you get a letter or an email, I believe they send now, saying, you've qualified, you're an Italian citizen. Here's the instructions for making an appointment to get your passport and things like that.
You have to go back to the consulate to get the passport?
Yeah. But it's not, it's a lot quicker to get a passport appointment than it is a citizenship appointment. You're probably talking a few months.
So it's just say, okay, so say that you're pretty well prepared. You
Mm-hmm.
have most of the documents. There may be a couple of spelling errors and stuff
Mm-hmm.
like that. So they won't say, okay, go back, make another appointment.
No,
more than likely.
No, they'll tell you, here's your checklist of what you need. And you have to, mail it back in.
Now, do they give you a time frame to get that paperwork back to them?
They say they want it, within 6 months of when you came in.
So, I mean, they give you, it's not like they want it next week.
Right. But people send it in after the 6 months too, and they'll accept it. I mean,
okay. Yeah,
they understand from that point of view, how difficult sometimes it is to correct some of these things.
So I have another question here. It says, this is from Anthony Dalbo again. I went to Family Search and found a census for my grandfather from 1940, 7 years prior to my father being born. Citizenship status says NA. What does that mean?
That means that naturalized is what that stands for. So, according to that census, he was a naturalized citizen prior to that date. So, unfortunately, he probably hit a wall in that respect. But if you think the census records aren't, these are census workers that went to these tenement buildings and took these records. So they're relying on the answers that were given from the people, and there was language issues. So it's not a good sign because it indicates they're naturalized. You still want to, if it's your only avenue, you want to order that search from the federal database just to make sure. But that the NA means naturalized. It would say NA for naturalized, AL for alien, and then I believe it's PA when somebody had submitted their paperwork, their petition, but they didn't get their certificate yet. So those are the three possibilities of what that column would say.
So let me see if I understand this now. So when a person back then, say for example, my great grandfather, he wanted to become an American citizen. What would his first step have been to become a citizen? Is it a petition or is it a declaration?
It's the declaration, the petition, and then the naturalization is the progression.
So
they're declared. Yeah, go ahead.
So the date would have to be the initial date of the declaration.
I believe that they go by if he gets the certification. If he went through with the process, it's the date of the certification. So
not the actual declaration saying I want to become a citizen. Right. It's when they approved him. You're saying
right.
Okay. Let's see. We have here's another question. This is from Maria on YouTube. What happens if the first name in American is completely different? My grandfather was Gaetano, but when he arrived in America, it was registered as Thomas.
Yeah, so and it's funny. There's a lot of Toms from Gaetano that happened. So if there's only a few things they need the Italian birth certificate to match everything else. So if you have the Italian birth certificate and then you have half a dozen other documents that say Thomas, it's very hard to get all those documents revised, especially when they're older. The other option is to get what's called a declaratory judgment, that a judge would look at all these documents and say, you know what, it's obvious that it's the same person. It's just an Anglicization of, or however you say that. The name was anglicized.
Americanized.
Yeah, Americanized. So it's obvious from my point of view, me being the judge, that this is the one and the same person. So the judgment will say Gaetano DeSapio, also known as Thomas DeSardo, if that was spelled wrong, Thomas DeSapio, and the judge would sign that and certify it. And you get that translated and take that to the consulate. So it's called a one and the same judgment.
I mean, but so if you have to go through these avenues, though, it can become a little bit more time consuming and a little bit more expensive. Correct?
Right. Yeah. So it's you would go to an attorney or you file it yourself, but it's a petition with wherever you reside. That your local court. You lay out all these documents, and you point to the fact that it's 6 kids on this document, and they're all listed the same. There's 6 kids over here for Thomas, and they're all the same and the same age, and his wife has the same name, and the birth date here. Because when you get marriage documents, the parents' names and birth dates are on there too.
Yes.
So Thomas so-and-so has the same birth date and same occupation, same wife as the Gaetano that was over here. So that's what that judgment is for, to clear those things up. Some of them are simple as a Mary to Maria, but some are like that, Gaetano to Thomas, and those are a little more difficult. But if it's rational to you and you can see that it's the same person, you just need a judge to sign off on that, and the Italian government will take that.
And they'll accept that as proof that Thomas and Gaetano are one and the same.
Right.
But I mean that is a great question, because a lot of times a lot of times this happened. Even
Yeah.
if the name was Paul or
Yeah.
Paolo in Italy, Paul here. I mean, Antonio, Anthony. I mean, those names are similar. So would they give you a hard time with those kind of names?
Yeah,
Or again, I guess it depends on the day.
Yeah, so like my grandmother's maiden name was Carullo on one document and Caruli with an I on another. Some of those caseworkers will let it go, and some are more stringent. They say it has to be exact.
Exactly.
When I went for my appointment, they made us, we were able to amend the documents rather than have to get a judgment. But when my brother went a little while later with the original documents, not the revised ones, they didn't question it. So it's like,
wow. I guess it just depends on the mood they're in, how the day is going for them.
Yeah.
Maybe it's better to be the first appointment of the day as opposed to the last.
And that's another common question: is that what if a relative went before me in the same consulate? Do I have to get all those other documents? Generally, if it's the same consulate, they have that original relative will have a dossier number, and you could refer to that, and then you just have to bring in your own birth certificate and things like that. Where if a relative went to another consulate, the policy is now you still have to bring in all those documents as if it was a fresh application.
So actually, there was a question a little bit earlier about if a mother and her 3 kids were going to go to get their citizenship, would it be, I guess, a little bit easier than once the mother establishes it than for her kids? I guess it would be a little bit easier, or
it would, but you want to schedule the appointments at the same, as quick as you can get them in. I would, you don't want to wait 2 years, have the mother get approved, and then go try to get an appointment later. Depends on the consulate. I know Philly, you could have 2 relatives go in at a time. New York, I think, changed that where you can only have, just yourself. But some consulates will let multiple family members come in at the same time. And some,
really?
Yeah. And some families you have to get your own appointment. So in Philly, we're lucky to have a family of 4 have appointments within a day of each other.
Okay, yeah, that's now. Somebody else said about spaces and names. So say if the name was like your name, DeSapio,
right?
Is it DE? Space D with an or does it have to be? How does that work?
Well, the on my records, there's a DE space because that's the way it was on the birth certificates. But some, if you're filling out like an electronic form, like I don't put the space in there just because it's easier. But on my documentation, there's a space. They go by the Italian original document. So if there's a space there, they're going to go use a space throughout. But if there's no space on the American documents and it's spelled the same, they don't have an issue.
So it's not. Yeah, it's not like there's an extra letter or a letter taken out. It's still the same name. It's just a space or not a space.
Right.
So this has been wild. I mean, first of all, Mike, I want to thank you so much for taking some time out to talk to us today because this has been wild. But I also want to talk a little bit because you are also heavily involved in your community in the tri-state area. So I think that we should talk a little bit about what you do kind of in your spare time.
Sure, they don't get mad at me if I didn't mention them.
So I do want. I know you're a part of a couple of organizations and groups that obviously are heavily into the Italian American.
Usually, if it says Italian American in the title and somebody asks me to be involved, I jump at it. Yeah, I know. It's not work. It's a lot of fun.
Actually, we have a comment here from Vittorio Graziani. You're the best.
So Vic
you get things done.
Vic is on our local board. So it's the Italian American Heritage Club of Hunterdon County. I've been a member of that since college. I was a president for a few years. And we have a new president this year, Rose. She's doing a great job considering the fact that it's all virtual. But yeah, it's a great group. My grandfather was a charter member in 1979, and we just had our 40th anniversary last year. And actually, we just talked about it before the show that we have a commemorative book that we have family the members had their family histories, and they put them together We have a little section for history of the club and the pictures, and we even had a congratulatory letter from the Italian consulate in there. So we're publishing that as we speak. So we have just under 200 members, and it's a great group. It's a family club, and it's very diverse as far as people's Italian experience. We have people that are off the boat, people that are 3-4 generations removed, and it's a great time. Everybody has fun, and you don't need to be a resident of Hunterdon County. We encourage anybody to join up. So
the website we have posted on the bottom of the screen, www.italianamericanhc.org.
Yeah. Yep.
So, like you said, you don't have to be from a certain town. You could be, as long as you're Italian American, you could join the club.
Yeah. Yep.
And so what are some of the other events that you do? I know, obviously, with this whole pandemic, a lot of events, a lot of things are being canceled.
Yeah,
what are some of the things that you do throughout the year?
So we do like certain social events. We have a monthly dinner meeting where we have a guest speaker of some sort of Italian tilt, talk to about what they do, or if it's an author or an entertainer or something like that. We do a La Cena Society, which is a supper club where we'll go to any Italian restaurants in the area or even out of the area, just another opportunity to get together and share the table. Then we have a charitable foundation, which we raise money for scholarships for graduating seniors, and we donate to the local a few local organizations, senior organizations as well. So to support that, we have a golf outing every year, which is our major fundraiser. And we also have a gala where we started honoring Italian Americans of the Year each year, which is it's a great event. And unfortunately, we had to postpone both of those this year. But we also have a bocce tournament, and we have a bocce club where people play twice a week.
Really?
Yeah. And what else? We have bus trips to Philly and New York. We've done like operas or museum exhibits or cooking classes. We do wine tastings in the summer. New Jersey's got some great local wineries where we, go around doing that. We have movie nights. We bought speakers and a screen that we do movie nights every few months, which is great. What else? We march in you've heard of the John Basilone Parade in
Raritan,
New Jersey. So we march in that every year, and that's always a lot of fun. We do a bus trip to Arthur Avenue every once in a while, which again we had to postpone. So there's like every month there's something going on. So it's a lot of fun. It's a great group.
So again, if people want to check it out, and you say it's open for people Italian or Italian Americans from outside the area too. So I'm up in North Jersey. If I want to come down for a meeting or something, I could become a member.
Yeah. I'm gonna plug you for a guest speaker too. For
definitely, I would be honored. So you're also involved in the Italian American Baseball Foundation, correct?
Yeah.
I'll tell you one thing. When you think of baseball, you think of all the great Italian American players.
Yeah, exactly.
Obviously, Joe DiMaggio, Phil Rizzuto, Yogi Berra. I mean, the list goes on and on.
Yeah.
So what exactly? I mean, so it makes sense that Italian Americans baseball, it all makes sense. So what exactly is the Italian American Baseball Foundation?
I don't do a lot of the heavy lifting with this group, but it's a great organization. So a friend of mine, Joe Quagliano, and his friend Carmine, together with Frank Calinato, Joe was talking to him. I mean, they go to spring training for the Yanks every once in a while, and they actually every year. But they got to talking about the glory days of these Italian American players and how it's kind of faded out, and there's not a lot of baseball talent coming out of Italy. Obviously, I mean it's a soccer country through and through. So they formed the Italian American Baseball Foundation to grow the game in Italy, but also to develop youth players here and there, and to just grow the game of baseball. So it was Joe is a friend of mine, and he was talking to me about it, and I said, man, that's two of my great passions, which is baseball and the Italian American community. So I went to their first fundraising dinner that honored Mike Piazza. Just a great group of guys. Most of the board members are like Brooklyn centric. So they got a great group together, great board. Mike Piazza was the first honoree, but then they had Bobby Valentine and John Franco, he's stayed involved with the group, and he's a great advocate for the board. So they're doing a lot. I mean, this pandemic has really hit them too for as far as activities, and they had showcases planned for youth, college youth, and they also are very involved with the Italian National Baseball Federation and Softball Federation. That's sort of how I got involved, was helping Italian American players that wanted to play for Team Italy. They knew they qualified for citizenship and they wanted to get their paperwork together. So I reviewed a lot of their applications, and so it's great. I mean, they have a great connection. It's really growing. It's really growing fast.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
And you're also involved, as am I, in the Italian Enclaves Historical Society. So how did you get involved in this organization? So
I was at the NIAF convention a few years ago, and Ray Gorini, who's the founder of the Italian Enclaves, he had this thing going where he was, went to most Italian neighborhoods, many Italian neighborhoods for years. He's collected this treasure trove of pictures from different Italian neighborhoods and documenting past and present. And he was one of the guest speakers on a panel at the NIAF convention. So that kind of caught my eye, and I started following him on Instagram. And then we got to talking actually at the IABF dinner, I forget which year it was. And I knew I recognized his name, and we got to talking, and I asked him to be a guest speaker at the local Italian club. So he came out here, and, he's one of the more passionate Italian Americans you'll find. So I think he might have described it as like, he's got like an all-star team of Italian Americans, like you involved. He's got Michelle, and Mike Grillo, and I don't want to name everybody, but like John Viola's involved now.
Yes.
And, it's really a great group of, just people that are prominent in the Italian American community. So we're really trying to get that off the ground to be the resource if somebody wants to research, an old Italian neighborhood or a present Italian neighborhood, and be like the database for it. So he's doing great work. We were on your show.
It was last week or 2 weeks ago.
Yeah. So.
And
I like this one better because I'm like the center square. I don't know you guys talking. So.
I think that talking about Italian enclaves is a good segue, because I know that you have a connection to, it's a lesser known Italian enclave in New Jersey, but nonetheless still an Italian enclave of Raritan.
Yeah.
So you mentioned John Basilone. So
yeah.
What is your connection to Raritan?
So that's when I first met Ray too. I said you gotta feature Raritan, New Jersey. So it's about 40 minutes from here. And we were involved in Raritan because they have a Catholic school there, St. Anne's, and a Catholic parish. And so I went to grade school there, and so did all my siblings and my cousins. And there was, I forget, it's in the teens how many DeSapios went through there. So it still has a very, I know my parents want us to have a Catholic education, but I think the main impetus was that it's still an Italian neighborhood, so. Uh-huh. For most of the Italian Americans that I knew growing up, it was from that school as opposed to, our area here. So it's just great memories there. They had Delucia's Pizzeria my father says when he was growing up in the 50s, it was the closest pizzeria they had from Frenchtown.
Wow.
So they would go out there, and I believe there's it's 4 generations now. And it's a small town, but they support 2 Italian bakeries, which are both great. My grandfather had a hand in, actually he built the convent. His construction business built the convent outside of the St. Anne's school.
Wow.
So so it's a lot of good memories growing up there, and attending the festa every year. I guess the rest of the state, it's kind of a little known Italian enclave, but it's still very Italian.
Yeah, because I guess I only recently found out about it maybe 3, 4, 5 years ago that I really said, wow, so there's something big. I knew John Basilone was there, but I never really realized that there was such a large Italian population. Yeah. I believe Basilone was originally from Buffalo, and then I think that his family somehow ended up in Raritan.
Yeah, I'm not sure.
But I think that he traces his roots to Benevento. I believe that's the province
Okay.
where his family was from.
Yeah, that
But I know that there were a lot of Calabrese in Raritan.
yes.
Because one of my wife's cousins married somebody from Raritan, and they were Calabrese, and they were very devoted. I guess originally the feast there at St. Anne's Church was originally dedicated to Saint Rocco.
Yes, correct. Yeah, yeah.
And now I guess originally the feast would have been in August, but within the last couple of years they moved it to, I guess it's June.
Yeah, I think it coincided with St. Anthony, but
yeah. So I think unfortunately it seems that a lot of these feasts that are beginning of the summer are being either canceled or postponed. Even one of my favorite feasts, the Giglio in Brooklyn, they just had to cancel it, which is heartbreaking because again, I mean,
that's a lot of fun every summer. Just if you missed one, there's always a feast somewhere that you could hit up. So
yeah, I mean, really, like I drag my wife every week and we're at a different feast, and now it's just like I mean, first of all, I mean, I used to do podcasts on the road, so all of those got canceled, and now all my feasts are getting canceled. I'm like, oh, but at least I have this outlet that I can bring prominent Italian Americans, whether they're writers, whether guys like you, and just this is a great outlet to be able to still connect to the Italian American community, even though we are socially distancing. Although I don't really, I've been thinking to myself, I don't like the word socially distance. I think a better word is physically distant.
Right. Okay. Yeah.
Because aren't we still we're still being social. We're still having a conversation, but yet we're not in the same room.
Right.
I think physically they should change that. I'm gonna have to write to the powers that be. After Dr. Fauci, another prominent Italian American, change it to physically distant, not socially distant, because we are, especially Italians, we got to be connected, right?
Yeah,
I mean,
this has been very hard, I think, for the Italian American psyche, as a group. It's just it's tough.
I mean, think about it. I mean, really, you can't go to the local cafe to get a coffee. You can't go and sit at your pizzeria and just enjoy a slice.
Yeah,
you have to everything has to be in your car. You got to take it home.
I have to mention is Cafe Maria in Baptisttown, New Jersey, is right around the corner, and that's our go-to place. We don't really have a piazza out here, and that's our
what's it called?
Cafe Maria. Yeah, it's the Latragna family. Giacomo Latragna owns it. They're a great Sicilian family, and that's been hard not going over there 5 times a week to get a coffee. So
I'm gonna have to put that on my list the next time I'm down in that area. I gotta.
If you come out to Raritan, we'll just keep coming further and meet these guys.
Are they open during this or no?
Yeah, just for takeout.
Yeah, like everything. I guess even like Espo's and those old school spots in Raritan. So you call it? Oh, here, it's actually see here. Vittorio says, I agree. Physical distancing. No, but it is true. I mean, I really think that we have to, in a weird way, this whole thing could kind of play on our minds, especially Italian Americans. That that we, you can't go and kiss your nonna. You can't kiss your mother. Hello or goodbye when you see him. Mm-hmm. All you gotta do is wave. It really is. This is a tough time that we're living through.
Yeah.
Before we conclude, we have to. I mean, obviously, at the table with Tony, I love to talk about food. We got to talk a little bit about food. I mean, even the this beautiful picture of your family. Where are they? They're at a table. They're at a table. I think it looks like was it a birthday cake there?
It looks like it, right? It looks like
yeah. So what are some of your food memories growing up?
Oh man. So I mean, I guess it's a cliche answer, but my mother's meatballs. I've tried. She passed away 8 years ago, and trying to recreate them, it's just impossible. But yeah, that's one of the big ones. My father and I share an affinity for sfogliatelle. That's always the go-to. Yep. And during Christmas time, we have the pasta with alici, the anchovies and raisin, walnuts, and that's one of my favorites as well. There's a kind of a rift in my family where the DeSapio side, they make their meatballs with raisins and pignoli nuts, which I love. But not a lot of people make them that way.
That's almost very Sicilian.
Right. That's what people have mentioned.
Yeah.
We're Calabrese, so it's a mystery as to where the recipe came from. But there's I have 5 brothers, and 3 of us like them with raisins and pine nuts, and 3 like it just plain the way my mother would make them without the raisins. So that's been a great debate.
So now the Sapio side is they're from Avellino?
Yes, yeah, outside Avellino, it's a town called Montefort.
And your mom's the Calabrese. What was the town in Calabria?
Benestare, it's called.
Benestare.
Yeah, it's right outside of Locri on the coast.
That's what is that? Is that the Provi? Is that Reggio?
Yes,
okay.
It's about an hour from Reggio. It's right on the edge of the province.
So you are an Italian citizen.
Yes,
correct. So
yeah.
have you been back to these places where your family's from and visit your family there or visit the people there?
So I guess my first trip to Italy was when I did a study abroad in college, and I stayed in Milan for 6 months. And for holidays, we went down. That's when I met my cousins for the first time on the DeSapio side, and we've had a connection ever since. And that kind of opened my eyes to the Italian culture, separate from the Italian American culture. So we still keep in touch with that side. My mother's hometown, I actually did visit, and it's a great story. I mean, I went to Penn State University for undergrad, and I walked in the local pizzeria needing a job, for spending money, and the owner was Calabrese, and he had those pads that the waiters use for writing down orders. He had about 20 different names and numbers in there of kids that the first week of school that wanted a job. So I left my name, and he called me back, and he said, yours is the only one that was Italian in that stack. So, his name was Massimo Napoli, and he was from a town that was 10 minutes from my mother's hometown. So we connected immediately, and he even, like I told him this later, he even has my mother's face, like you could see it in him. So,
really?
And he was a young business owner, so we're not that far in age. So we became fast friends, and I went to his wedding when he got married a few years later. He got married back in his hometown. So I went there, and I said, man, I can't pass this up going to my mother's hometown. So we took a day and went out there. So I didn't, connect with anybody out there or try to research, her biological family, but just to walk around that town.
To have a connection.
Yeah, really something.
That's that. I mean, it is beautiful because really, I mean, you think about it. Those, to go back to these places where our family, where they walk the streets, where they walk the roads. I mean, and also, I mean, a lot of these towns aren't Rome. They're not Naples. They're not Milan. There's these little.
That town in Calabria. I mean, a lot of that area in Calabria was just very untouched by tourism, and it even, it got spared a lot of the damage that. A lot of the rest of Italy for through the war, World War II. So it was a really, really unique place to visit. So I would definitely go back there.
So do you have any? So obviously now this is a tough time. We obviously can't travel. It's tough to travel. What advice would you have for people that once these travel bans are lifted? Should they? I mean, I guess there's again a two-part question. Should they try to start researching if they're interested in becoming a citizen, to try to figure out how they're connected to the homeland? And then the next question is, should people be afraid to travel?
No. I mean, don't ask me a question about the virus, or if that, as far as like going to Italy for the first time, and should they be afraid to do that? Absolutely not. I mean, they should just jump in and do it. As far as researching their family, I think I had the advantage of other family members having done a lot of the research. My uncle was the one that was actually the impetus behind applying for dual citizenship. We actually went through the process together, and he had done a lot of the research before I got involved. But I know, I know you listen to the Italian American podcast. Anthony Fasano was one of the founders. He wrote a book about the 40 Days in Italy, I think it's called, about the process of him discovering his heritage and the way he went about doing the research. And I would recommend anybody to read that book because it talks about how to. I mean, you want to be prepared if you're going to go to your ancestral hometown and ask for certain documents. You want to you want to research the process first. But as far as going to Italy and discovering it, I would say you have to do it in a few trips, right? You gotta when you go to Italy for the first time, you gotta hit certain areas and say you did it and get a feel for the country. But to go back and research your ancestral homeland, got to do it. I mean, don't put it off.
Yeah.
I would say because you could always if the trip's too short, you could always go back. If you only have a week, go and do it. But even though their English is a lot better than most of our Italian. So if the language is a fear, start studying it up a little bit and don't be afraid of doing it. I mean, with Google Translate, you could get away with a lot more than you could 20 years ago as far as communicating, right? So
Ray,
don't waste time.
Ray just said, Tony, guys, this convo must touch upon food, please, somehow. we did talk a little bit about food, but I guess a question I can ask you.
Yeah.
Is what do you have any favorite foods, any favorite places, even in your neighborhood or your area, must try Italian places?
That's like saying somebody has 6 kids, like which one's their favorite. So I'd say, so for pizza, okay. For the original, the New York slice, I'd say go to Carmine's on Graham Avenue in Brooklyn. It's amazing. But locally out here, we have a place called Luna Pizza that does Neapolitan style pizza, like high temperature, pies, and they get all their ingredients from Italy. So that's also a comfort food for me. Is going there. But then we've talked about Le Vertu down in Philly.
Yes.
They are at Abruzzese cuisine, and it's very really authentic, and it's just you feel like you're sitting on a mountaintop with this little trattoria.
Even especially if you go now when it gets a little bit warmer out, when you're able to sit outside, they have that little mural. It looks like you're it looks like you're like you're in Abruzzo. It's beautiful.
Yeah. So
and really, even the food, the Abruzzese food is kind of totally different than what, say, like a Neapolitan is used to. So there's no spaghetti and meatballs. There's no I mean it's a very different cuisine.
Yeah. And then locally here, it's just called the Italian Bakery. They have one in Flemington, New Jersey, and the other one's in Raritan, and the Menino family, they're from Sicily as well. That's another go-to. I miss the Saturday mornings. You go over there, you get a few pastries and an espresso, and
that's the place in Raritan.
Yeah, so they own one in Raritan and one in Flemington, New Jersey. But in Raritan, there's also Randazzo's bakery, which they're awesome too. So for a small town to support both of them, it's very passionate. So
we have to do what we can to support these little mom and pop shops. I know Ray says hashtag support Italian American businesses. It is important
for sure
to support about, because you know what, you think about it, a lot of these places, unfortunately, if we don't support them now, when this is all over, they're going to be gone because there was nobody there to sustain them.
Yeah.
I mean, I know it's scary to go out and you got to wear a mask and gloves and this and that, but a lot of these places are adapting to what the current situation is. So whether they're offering takeout, delivery, curbside pickup, there are plenty of options now to be able to get your Italian food fix if you're not cooking at home.
Yeah.
I can say, even for me, like yesterday, there's a local butcher shop. I went to the butcher shop. I ordered some stuff for the weekend, but I also, I was there. He was cutting steaks. I'm like, he's literally cutting steaks in front of me. I cannot leave without getting a couple of steaks for dinner.
I saw that. I saw you post there.
So I grabbed a couple of steaks, and I made a nice steak dinner last night. Actually, Ray said, "Yes, Tony, you got it. The best support Italian American businesses."
I think what I'd like to ask your viewership. This is bigger than the saucer gravy argument, which is kind of played out. So when you get it like a St. Joseph Zeppole,
okay,
you get it with cannoli cream, or do you get it with the custard?
That's okay. So I have a whole thinking behind it.
I'll give you my take on it.
Okay.
I'm kind of a purist, and I think a cannoli cream belongs in a cannoli.
Okay.
All the other pastries, that should be custard. I have my brother. I have a twin brother, and so we got cakes from the local bakery for our birthday. I don't know, a few years ago, and he's a cannoli filling guy, and I'm a custard guy, so we had to get 2 different cakes.
but for me, so what I say is a zeppole or a zeppola would be custard,
Okay.
but a sphinge would be cannoli. So like so that's kind of like if I'm going to the bakery, especially like to a Sicilian bakery, and they have sphinge, I'm getting a sphinge.
Okay.
But yeah, if you go to another bakery, they have the zeppola with the custard, then I go that route. So yeah, I'm definitely I definitely have I have a way to justify eating both of them. I'm gonna eat both of them.
But I would really without it, just the fried dough.
That's what you call. I mean, that's like what a traditional is. That
The St. Joseph zeppole has got the filling, but
yeah, even they call it like pizza frita, with just the fried dough and a little bit of cinnamon sugar or powdered sugar, whatever. Right. Actually, that's the way they do it out in Pennsylvania. I've seen a lot of feasts, a lot of restaurants.
That's what the Festa does there in Raritan too, right? You get the
they do. They do like the pizza
to start, and then the one with sugar to finish.
I mean, really, it's amazing how there's so many different traditions, these Italian traditions. Because really, I mean, Italian cuisine is not Italian cuisine. It's like regional, and then even that, it's like even like down to the town by town. Yeah. Really. So it's whenever you get
different families pick up things along the way too. That's some of the more interesting discussions at the Italian Club is how the cuisine has evolved. Your families could be from the same town, but one of them landed in New York. The other one came out here to Hunterdon County, and things just developed differently. And
absolutely,
absolutely, sounds fun. We actually one of our events. We have a homemade wine party every November, so everybody brings whatever if they make homemade wine. And then we started calling it expanding it to a meatball showcase. So everybody brings their own meatballs, and we don't do a contest because it's impossible. Everybody would vote for their own, but that's a lot of fun too.
But Mike, I want to thank you so much for taking time out to come on the show tonight. If people want to get in touch with you, if they want to learn more about you, learn more about becoming a citizen of Italy, just give us your website again. Give us your social media.
Yeah, so the website will have all my other contact information. My email and phone number, and I'm on Instagram as Italian American Citizen. Very generic, and I have a Facebook page, DeSapio Dual Citizenship Service, and reach out to me. I'm happy to do a free consult to see if we could figure out something, or if you have specific questions, just hit me up.
Excellent. Well,
pastry spots or anything. I think we should do a virtual tasting. We'll each go to our local bakeries and have a taste off.
That's a good idea. You see if we can share a little through the camera. I wish there was like smell. I know Emeril Lagasse always used to say smell-o-vision. I wish there was taste-o-vision. Yeah. But again, Mike, I want to thank you so much for taking some time out for coming on the show. This has been a blast. I mean, I've learned so much, and really, I hope that I can become a citizen of Italy one day myself. So we'll see what happens with that. Stay tuned, as they say.
Right.
But again, thank you so much, Mike, for coming on the show. Again, I am Anthony Scilia, better known as Tony Manja. Just as a reminder, on Monday night at 7:30 p.m., we're going to be doing traveling to Italy in the time of Corona. So we're talking to two Italian tour guides, Italian-American tour guides, Daniello Terry and also Allison Scola. So I'm looking forward to speaking with them. That's going to be Monday night, 7:30 on YouTube and Facebook. So it'll be live. And again, if you have questions, I know there's going to be a lot of questions about, when can we travel to Italy? How can we travel to Italy? So that'll be coming up on Monday night. So until then, we'll see you next time. Have a great weekend. Ciao for now.
Good night. Buonanotte.
Buonanotte.